And now what we've all been waiting for is in step 5, we are going to assign total manufacturing costs to units in ending inventory and to those that were completed and transferred out. So basically what we're doing is costs accounted for. And so similarly, we will bring this formatting down. It will go to the cell, but it doesn't really like the formatting so much, so we'll go through and make these extra steps. So now what we need to do is we would go back to the equivalent units. And so now what I'll do is I'll create a column here for equivalent units so that we can go through this allocation mechanism. So remember, we have 2675 for the direct materials and 2700 for conversion costs. So, but we have units that were completed and transferred out. That's 2600. So that means, those are the costs for completed and transferred out. And I said I was going to be consistent with this, so we'll go back to the C&TO here. So completed and transferred out. So they're 100% complete. So we would take our 2600 and then multiply that by the 1166. So for direct materials. And we could go ahead and use the cell referencing and drag it over, but with only one more element here, this is sufficient that we could just take the 2600 multiplied by 1304. And then we would like to have a total here. Now notice we had this total here. We can just copy that formula down. So of the $66,400 to account for, we've accounted for $64,221 for the units that have been completed and transferred out. In our ending work in process, now notice above we said we had 500 units that were in ending work in process. But really, we would have the equivalent of, for direct materials, only 15% of that, and conversion costs are a whopping 20% of that. So when we look at this, so we're going to have to do a equivalent unit calculation. I mean, there are two ways that we can do this. One, for direct materials. So for direct materials, we could take the 2675 that we'd calculated before and subtract the 2600 there, and we get that 75. Or alternatively, we could take this 15% that was the state of completion, multiply that by the 500 units, and we get the same 75. So either approach you take will be fine. But now we take the same 75 units, equivalent units, multiplied by the cost per equivalent unit, and we end up for direct materials of 874.77. Now I know you're excited about this, so what we'll do is we will add up these costs in this column, and we get our costs accounted for direct materials of $31,200, just as we had seen in cell F27. Now for conversion costs, so we still have a little bit over $1,000 to explain. So for conversion costs, we're going to have the 2600, well, we have 2700 units that were our total equivalent units, minus the 2600 that have been completed and transferred out. That's 100. Again, if you want to check that, I am not a believer. I want to check that out. It's good to be an inquiring mind. 20% of 500 is also 1,000. I'm sorry, 100. So we take our 100 equivalent units in ending inventory, multiply that by 1304, and we get 1,303. Calculate these formulas all the way through, and we see that we have explained or accounted for all of the costs that we needed to have accounted for. So the cost to account for, 31,200, 31,200, 35,200 for conversion costs, and total of 66,400.